Alright guys, welcome to numbers 81 through 85 of my top 100 records of all time. If you don't know what we're doing, we do have a link in the description to the intro to this series, and make sure you catch up on all the ones prior to this. I'm going to share with you 5 more records that I absolutely adore, and I think you will as well. Stick around to find out what my picks are right after this. Number 85 is Jack's Mannequin, Everything in Transit. Andrew McMahon has been a force in the industry since the late 90s. Starting with something corporate, he eventually evolved into Jack's Mannequin and is now making music as Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness. Something Corporate was a pop-punk institution that everybody loved. It broke away from the tropes and was viewed as one of the best things coming out of the scene. I almost put the seminal Something Corporate record, Leaving Through the Window, on this list, but for some reason, Jack's Mannequin edges it out for me. Not some reason. I think I know why. Jack's Mannequin brings something to the table that Something Corporate does not. Intense, more mature life view. While Something Corporate had relatable lyrics that any youthful person could relate to, Jack's Mannequin is being spoken through the voice of someone that has seen more of the world and looks at the worldview in a more complex, more intense way. The Beach Boys inspired tracks are sun-tinged and summery, but the things that are being sung about are not necessarily the happiest themes. That complexity to me makes it a way stronger release than anything Something Corporate ever put out. That being said, this is an incredible pop record that I think anyone can appreciate, whether you like emo music or not. It's emotional, it's sad, it's happy, it's all over the place, but mostly it's just brilliant. I missed the original pressing of this, but I was able to snag the 10th anniversary edition. And I love the billboard on the cover that says this is a 10th anniversary edition. I managed to grab it on the dark blue marbled vinyl, which is funny because the main single from this record is called Dark Blue. Dark blue with kind of black wisps in it. Really nice looking. This record is now extremely hard to come by. And I love everything Jack's Mannequin has ever done, everything that Andrew's done for the most part, maybe not so much his newer stuff, but ultimately, this is the best thing he's ever done. Number 84, 9 Inch Nails' Pretty Hate Machine. The first 4 tracks of this album are so unbelievably intense that you just can't help but be drawn in. It sets the tone for the rest of the band's career. And those 4 were followed up by one of their best songs of all time, Something I Can Never Have, which has Reznor pleading and begging the listener to understand what he's going through over beautiful somber piano. Until the explosive, emotive ending, of course. Trent Reznor took his love for new wave and he wrapped it in an industrial, aggressive bow, and it's done perfectly. It still manages to keep the sound accessible for your average person, where a lot of industrial music is kind of gatekeeping, in the sense of you're not able to really understand it unless you like the genre or spend time getting into it. This is just as much a pop album as it is something definitely industrial and heavy. There are so many albums I could have put on this list. I was toying with putting The Fragile, I was toying with putting The Downward Spiral. I really love a lot of the stuff that Trent has done. He's proven himself to be one of the greatest musicians of all time. But for me, nothing tops Pretty Hate Machine. I think this is the quintessential 9 Inch Nails album. Opening with Head Like a Hole is one of the most memorable openings to an album that I can think of. I distinctly remember seeing them at a festival a couple years ago, and when they played that, I was having like an out-of-body experience while we were all dancing tribally while this white light was bathing us. Absolutely memorable concert experience. This is an original press of the record and it sounds amazing. Much better than some of the represses I've heard. So if you can find it and track it down, I recommend doing so. Number 83, Kero Bonito, Bonito Generation. This is one of those records that if you tell someone about it and explain it, they may think that you like it ironically or you're joking with them. But joke's on them. It's actually an incredible pop record. This is as close as you can get to pop perfection in the world of pop as we know it in the 2000s. Legitimately, every single song on the record could be the single. I mean it. I couldn't even tell you, if I didn't know this record, which one would be the lead single, because they all have that powerful, infectious energy that a good pop single should have. Sarah Bonito on the cover is the front woman, and Gus and Jamie do the beats. They do the beats in a way that are definitely respectful of the genres that they're utilizing, and they're masters of their craft without a doubt. It's a cross-pollination of electronic music and J-pop and modern American pop as well. Sarah sings and raps with her signature British accent in half Japanese, half English, which provides a really interesting vocal aesthetic that kind of shakes you up a bit throughout the album, but in a really good way. The first track I ever heard from these guys was on their first mixtape, Intro Bonito. It was called Sick Beat. I remember being floored at how cool the sample was, which was the ba 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 from Super Mario 64 when you're about to start a level, and they turned that into a, for lack of a better term, sick beat. The rest of the song and album was unlike anything I had ever heard before, and I knew I had to dive in further. I love that mixtape so much, and arguably even more than this. But I love everything they've ever done, including when they changed their sound up for the follow-up album to this, Time and Place, where they incorporate kind of psychedelic, grungy, shoegaze elements in addition to the saccharine sound they're known for. I truly can't pick a favorite song from this record because they are all so fun to dance and sing to, and I can listen to it in almost any mood. The music manages to be simple and complex at the same time, which is a really powerful thing to convey throughout an album. I own a couple variants of this. This is, I believe, the first pressing of it on this really nice blue vinyl. And I'd like to say that I might have a hand in this album being on vinyl. There's no proof of it, but I'll tell you the story, you decide for yourself. A long time ago, at the Echo in Los Angeles, I met Sarah Bonito after the show. She was super nice. We got a picture together. I told her about Too Many Records. Around that time, it was Damn It Sandy, and Damn It Sandy had actually done a video calling them our band of the month. She said she saw the video, which is really cool, and subsequently started following me on Instagram. Very cool. We've maintained a loose Instagram friendship since then, and I remember I had told her when this came out, you need to put this on vinyl. And she was like, yeah, that sounds cool, wasn't sure if they were going to do it or not. And then she joined one of my live streams one day on Instagram, and we started chatting about how she should put this on vinyl. She said she was going to seriously look into it. She thanked me for my recommendations. A couple months later, a pre-order was launched for this on vinyl. I definitely wasn't the reason it's on vinyl, but I'd like to think I was one of the voices that made it happen. Number 82, LCD Soundsystem's Sound of Silver. There are no bands that sound just like LCD Soundsystem. There are some that sound similar, but nothing captures the energy and the vibe that LCD puts out. Dance punk, I guess, is the genre that they are known for, if you had to kind of ascribe a genre to it, but they really transcend genre. The electronic production ranges from frenetic and dancey to calm and emotive, and both sides of the spectrum are excellent. First song I ever heard from them was a song from their other celebrated record, This Is Happening, called Daft Punk Is Playing in My House. A fast and loose, intoxicating track that makes it impossible to not stand up and dance to. That album is great too, but honestly, I think that this is their seminal album, one of the seminal albums of the 2000s, and it will be remembered for a very long time. Frontman James Murphy's sardonic lyrics are often biting and caustic, but very relatable, especially if you're a slight pessimist or more. It's a solid commentary on society's shortcomings, North American Scum being one of those tracks. Us Be Them is a repetitive anthem that would get even the wallest of flowers to the dance floor. All My Friends is arguably the song of the generation. The title track, Sound of Silver, awakens the disco beast in me. And finally, New York I Love You, But You're Bringing Me Down is a somber, morose closer to an absolutely eclectic album. This is a band where you love them or you hate them, and there's not really an in-between. I think any true fan of music can really let LCD into their heart without too much pushback. There are no colored variants of anything in the LCD catalog, which is crazy because they're very heavily into vinyl at the DFA record label. It's criminal that this is not on a silver record. It sells itself, guys, come on. And the last record from this list, number 81, Bob Dylan's Blonde on Blonde. I had a tough time with this one because I love Bob Dylan. I grew up with Bob Dylan, but this kind of breaks my rule a little bit. There are dozens of Bob Dylan songs that I love, but I don't fully believe that any Bob Dylan record is without some filler. It's just kind of the way things were oftentimes back in the 60s and 70s. A lot of albums just had a couple singles that were great and then a couple filler records to complete the album. That being said, this is considered to be one of the first, if not the first, double album in rock music, and it does it pretty flawlessly. Even the filler is extremely enjoyable, just maybe not as much as some of the best Dylan tracks throughout his discography. I think Blonde on Blonde is unequivocally his most realized album of his entire sprawling discography. And it definitely contains some of my favorite tracks. After the lo-fi and tongue-in-cheek opening of Rainy Day Women, which is also known as Everybody Must Get Stoned, he launches into this signature 1960s New York hipster poetry, fused with Nashville folk eccentricities to make something that the world had never heard before and no one's been able to capture since. And like I said, it contains some of his most memorable folk rocks and bops. It doesn't overstay its welcome despite being a double album, and nothing really feels too long, including the heart-wrenching 11.5-minute D-side, one of his opuses, Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands. Just a beautiful track. Some of his best songs are on this album, like I Want You and Just Like a Woman. And of course, a song that many consider to be his best, Visions of Joanna, is on this album as well. I think if you're going to start somewhere with Bob Dylan, this is a great place to start because it shows off where he came from and also a little bit of where he was going. but nothing really captures Bob Dylan in the way that this album does. I own a beat up 70s pressing of it, and it sounds good, but I'd love to update to that Mo-Fi version at some point. If I find it for a good price point, I will. Alright guys, another installment of this series done. I hope you guys like my picks. Please leave a comment and let me know what you thought, if you love the albums, if you don't like the albums. Also, feel free to keep guessing on what's going to be on the rest of the list. Ton more records to get through. I can't wait to show you some more stuff. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel so you don't miss out on anything I put out. And there'll be more soon, so look forward to that. Thanks for watching, guys. Take it easy.